So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining, and welcome to Peace Week, which is organized by the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. They host this every semester to bring together students, faculty, alumni, and members of the conflict resolution community to engage in a week-long conversation around how to effectively address issues of peace and justice. The theme for this semester is Horizons of Innovation and Entrepreneurship for Peace. So in my session, I'll be discussing how we can leverage technology to empower everyday citizens to engage in citizen activism. But before I get into that, I do want to introduce myself. My name is Amani Mansour. I'm an alumna of the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, where I earned my undergraduate degree in 2014 and my graduate degree in 2016. I currently work as a technical architect at Debug Academy, where I lead the web development projects for many of our clients. So it may seem that I strayed very far away from my conflict resolution background, but it was actually an internship at Peace Tech Lab, a nonprofit dedicated to technology and peace building, that inspired me to learn how to code because I was learning about all the different ways other people were using their technical skills to build tools to help peace builders in conflict zones. And I thought that was really fascinating. So I wanted to learn how to code. And after I gained those technical skills, I worked at a digital agency called Beacon Fire Red. And they're now part of Allegiance Group, but their mission was to empower nonprofits with the digital technology they need in order to be successful. So I got to help build websites for many large nonprofit organizations, which was really cool. And my ultimate goal for myself is to combine my technical skills with my background in conflict resolution and to hopefully in some small way contribute to positive social change. And that's why I'm here today. So I have an idea for a software product, an app idea, that I think could make activism more accessible for everyday citizens. So for the first 30 minutes, I'm going to be presenting that idea to you all. And then I'd like to use the remainder of the time to do a workshop where we can discuss and brainstorm ideas around some of the questions that have come up while I've been thinking through the design and flow of the app. Okay, so like I mentioned, my talk is about how we can leverage technology to empower everyday citizens to engage in citizen activism. So let's first start by defining what citizen activism is. It's when people come together in collective actions aimed at influencing political or social outcomes in pursuit of a perceived common good. It's generally aimed at holding governments and institutions accountable or advocating for policy change. So what is everyday activism? This is sort of the name I currently have for my app idea. And I use the word everyday both as one word and two words because I want to empower everyday citizens, your average ordinary citizen, to engage in activism every day. Basically just making it more of a habit where people can engage in activism on a more daily basis. So the goal of the app is to make activism more accessible to everyday citizens. And throughout some of the slides, I have these wireframes. I'm not a designer by any means. I'm usually the developer, but this was just to help you all visualize what I'm talking about. So if someone were to download this app, they'd be able to explore the various causes and choose which ones they would like to join. So why is the goal to make activism more accessible? Well, citizen activism is very important to a society because it can drive significant social and political change. And this change has the ability to promote social justice and equity, to hold governments and institutions accountable, to create policy change and increase democratic participation so citizens have a say in the social and political decisions of their society. So it's really about giving people the power to engage in meaningful action that drives the change they want to see in their society. Another reason why making activism more accessible is a goal is because it's also good for an individual's well-being. It can provide a sense of purpose and empowerment. It can be an outlet for emotions, as well as increase social connection. So you realize you're not alone, that other people have similar ideas and similar goals as you do. And it can also counter feelings of depression, anxiety, and guilt. I think one of the hardest things is when you see something wrong or see an injustice and you feel like you don't have the power to do anything about it. It can be very frustrating and lead to sadness and anger. So having a way to engage in a healthy and meaningful way towards the change you want to see in your society can also be good for an individual's well-being. So how can we achieve this goal? Can we make activism more accessible for the everyday citizen? I think we start by reducing the barriers to entry that people are experiencing. A lot of times product ideas come from someone trying to solve a problem within their own life. So I myself have causes that I care deeply about. And while I do take some actions to support them, it's not in the amount that I would like. And I don't feel like the actions I'm taking are as meaningful or impactful. So I think for me and what I've observed in my community are that some of the barriers to entry include time constraints. So finding time outside of your work and family obligations can be difficult. Not having a clear and reliable source of information, whether it be on the issue or on opportunities to engage in collective action, I think can be difficult. And I'm not saying the information isn't out there. I think it's just that now with the internet and social media, there's so much information out there that it can be hard to find what you're looking for or what you need. Sometimes you might not even be aware of what you need or are looking for. And then you also have to consider the fact that there's a lot of misinformation out there. Um, so it can be difficult for people who already don't have a ton of time. And then lastly, skepticism on the impact of your actions. So if you feel like the little bit that you can do won't make a difference, then you might not do it at all. And it's the same logic that goes into elections. We're always told every vote matters, and yet thousands of people still don't show up to the polls because they don't think their one singular vote is going to make a difference. So, am I alone in these sentiments? Well, I did some research and I found a couple of surveys that I want to go through. So, this is the 2018 voter engagement survey that surveyed US adults over the age of 18. And some of its key findings were it reported low levels of civic engagement, where in the last 12 months, about 45% of respondents did not engage in any activity. In terms of reasons why they didn't engage, about 40% of Americans said they do not get involved in social causes or campaigns because of lack of information about the issues. And this increases to 49% for young Americans. And then 40% of Americans said they do not engage or take action because they do not believe it will make a difference. So here we have lack of information and skepticism of their impact of their actions being barriers to entry. And then lastly, 20% said they do not engage in campaigns and causes because they do not want to be criticized. This next survey was by Public Input, the 2023 Resident Engagement Survey, and this surveyed 1,000 residents across the U.S. on their willingness to engage with state and local governments on issues. So one of the key findings from this survey was that residents are motivated to engage on a variety of issues, but report not being made aware of opportunities to engage. So the top cited reason for not engaging was I did not know about the opportunity. And the second top reason was I did not have enough information to contribute my input. So again, here we have lack of information being a challenge for people, but also important to note is that people do want to engage more than they are. Okay, so I also did my own survey a couple weeks ago, and I promoted it on my social media platforms and sent it to friends and family and asked them to share it with their network. So I understand I didn't have as much control over my sample the way the other surveys did, but I still felt like it was valuable to do and provided some good insight. So I want to share my key findings with you. I received 62 responses, 58 of those being from individuals living in the US, and about half were between the ages of 25 to 34. So the first key finding is around levels of engagement in activism. So the first question was, are you currently interested in a social, political, or environmental cause that you would want to provide support to? So this is to understand, are people interested in supporting a cause? And there were various yes statements as well as a no statement. But the yeses were, yes, I have taken some actions for all of the causes I support, or yes, I'm actively involved in all of the causes that I support. So it's to gauge two things. Are they interested, and what's their general level of engagement? So over half of respondents said, yes, I have taken some actions for some of the causes that I support. Close to 90% did select one of the yes statements. So the vast majority of people are interested in supporting a cause, and most people have at least taken some action towards their causes. This next question, also related to levels of engagement, was how often do you engage in any form of citizen activism? About a third said occasionally, which was 3 to 5 times per year. And then 27.5% said rarely, 1 to 2 times per year. So those were the top two answers. So it was overall generally on the lower end of engagement. But it comes out to like a 60-40 split where almost 60% engage rarely or occasionally. And then just under 40% engage frequently, which is once a month, or very often, multiple times a month. Okay, so this next key finding is about perceived effectiveness of activism. So when asked on a scale of 1 to 5, how effective do you think your activism has been in creating change? Almost 39% said 2, which was slightly effective. And then 30% said moderately effective, which is right in the middle of the scale at 3. And then close to 18% said not effective at all. So generally, people are feeling like their actions haven't led to creating change. And now I'm going to talk about the challenges that people expressed in terms of engaging in activism. So when asked, would you like to participate in more activism than you currently do? For this question, respondents could select as many answers that apply. So it wasn't just a simple yes or no. It was yes or no with a reason, and they could select as many that apply to them. So the top 3 answers here were yes, but I don't have enough time. Yes, but I'm concerned about my safety and political or social repercussions. Yes, but I don't know how to get involved. Again, the majority of people are selecting yes, meaning they want to engage in more activism, but they are facing challenges, lack of time, not knowing how to get involved, which I think falls under lack of information. But then there's also fear of repercussions that's presenting itself as a challenge. And this next question is, what is the biggest challenge you face when trying to engage in activism? Here, respondents could select one answer. So before they could select multiple, so I could get a gauge of all the challenges, all the types of challenges they're facing. But here, I just want them to select one so that they are telling me what their biggest challenge is. And the top 3 answers here were at number 1, time constraints, with almost a third selecting that. And then tied for second place was not feeling like my actions will make a difference and fear of repercussions. And then the third most selected answer was lack of information. So these top 3 answers ended up being a top 4 because 2 of them tied for second place. But essentially, you have lack of time, lack of information, feeling like your actions aren't making a difference, all presenting them in the top 3 answers. But again, this fear of repercussions is also a challenge that people are facing. And then the last question I'll go through is, if there were a software product to help you participate in activism more often, what features would be most valuable to you? Rank the options from one to four, one being most valuable. So this was just a gauge for me to see what features people would find most useful to them. So at number one, which is most valuable, it was easy access to information. Two was easy access to collective actions. Three, privacy protections. And four, ways to track my impact. So what are the surveys telling us overall? First, they're showing us that generally there are low levels of engagement in activism for everyday citizens, but there is a desire that people have to engage in more activism. But the challenges they're facing include time constraints, skepticism of the impact of their actions, fear of repercussions, and lack of information. And fear of repercussions wasn't just presenting itself in my survey. In that first survey, I discussed the 2018 voter engagement survey. 20% of the people said fear of criticism was preventing them from getting involved. So I do think that falls under the umbrella of fear of repercussions. So, how can we lower these barriers to entry? My proposal is to create a comprehensive software platform that provides knowledge, action, and impact tracking. So, I want users to be able to get on the app, select the causes that they want to join, and then for each cause, they can learn more or take action. Learn more is having all the knowledge that they need to understand their chosen cause. Take action provides all the collective actions that they can take part in to support their cause. And impact tracking is for them to track all the actions that they've taken so that they can be encouraged to continue to do more. And I know from the surveys, fear of repercussions was also a barrier to entry, and it is something I'm going to address later on in this presentation. So let's talk about knowledge informing the activists. So this will provide users with reliable information and resources so they can understand the complexities of their chosen cause and advocate effectively for them. So it can include things like facts and figures to access accurate data, talking points, so they have concise and persuasive arguments they can articulate during conversations, in-depth articles to cover the nuances of each cause, and news updates so they stay informed with the latest developments. And then for action, this is about showing users and providing them with all the opportunities to engage in collective action so that they can support their cause. So it can include things like event participation, being able to discover and join protests and rallies and educational events. It could be taking part in direct actions like sit-ins or boycotts or endorsements of companies, depending on their stance on issues. It could be signing a petition, contacting your representative, um, discovering volunteer opportunities with local organizations, or donating to those organizations to support their work financially. So it can be various collective actions that people can go in and have the tools they need in order to support their cause. And then there's impact tracking. So I think it would be important to allow users to see the number of actions they've taken towards their causes. And we can have things like an activist streak that's daily, weekly, or monthly, or participant levels like ally, activist, or change agent, which people would get that label depending on how many actions they've taken or the types of actions they're taking, just as a way to encourage people to keep going. But more importantly, I think providing updates on movement wins so they could see the progress of their movement and be encouraged to keep taking action. And lastly, my hope is to connect an activist actions with positive outcomes in the movement. So, for example, if someone's been contacting their representative and eventually that representative does have a policy change, that is in line with what they want for their cause and their movement, then we can connect that activist action to that positive outcome. And then they can see how their actions are actually making a difference and be encouraged to continue to take action. So what about fear of repercussions? So this is, a big topic, and it's not easy to resolve. So I don't think my ideas here are going to resolve everything, but I think it can help. And when we talk about fear of repercussions, I think a lot of times, we think about the big repercussions, which, it could be people protesting and maybe they're in a society with a repressive government, and they're met with violence or arrests and things like that. But there's fear of repercussions in every society because, when you're supporting a cause, especially if it's during a time when it's not popular, if you're vocal online, it can lead to losing your job, struggling to get another job. So it can really impact your livelihood. And these are things that have happened. So some of the ways that I want to address this uh, is first and foremost, this goes without saying, but obviously protecting user data. So limiting data collection to only what is necessary. If the app doesn't need certain data, it shouldn't collect it. Ensuring the use of the most secure software and updating it regularly to reduce the chance of hacks and data breaches is obviously important. And then encrypting data so that in case there is an exposure, it will be encrypted and very, very difficult to understand. Another thing I've been thinking about is allowing users to have some form of anonymity, maybe using usernames and instead of real names. But I have to weigh the pros and cons of that. Like, if people are signing a petition without using their real name, is it going to be as effective? I'm not sure. Um, and then lastly, education. So I think educating users on their rights and protections, providing users with information on how to handle various situations in order to protect themselves is crucial. Um, So, it could be as simple as giving them the information to know how to handle a conversation with HR if they get pulled into a meeting based off of something they posted online. What should they say? What shouldn't they say? What are their rights and how do they advocate for them effectively? I think that can be very empowering for people. So, all in all, Everyday Activism, the app is meant to be a one-stop shop for people to become informed and take action on the issues they care about. It's about creating more productive allies to a cause, right? There are organizations, there are people and leaders who are dedicating themselves to certain causes, but there are a lot of supporters out there who just don't know what to do, who would be allies, who might like a post on social media, who might share it on their social media, but they can be more productive allies. And I think by engaging those people, we can increase and sustain collective efforts. Um, so that they amplify a movement and are more impactful. And I do think that this can be more than just a tool. I think it could be a movement in and of itself towards a more informed, active, and empowered society. So the question here is, are there any other software products out there that are similar? These are some that I think have features that overlap with everyday activism, but I do think my app would differ from them. So I think the knowledge component in everyday activism would be more comprehensive. There would also be more options with the type of collective actions that can be taken. Also, the user experience is focused on supporting a cause rather than supporting a particular collective action. So it's not about supporting a certain petition, but it's about supporting a cause. And maybe one of the actions a person takes is signing a petition. But there's so many various ways that they can take action. And the goal is for them to take more than just one action, but to make it a daily habit. And I also think by focusing on all three components, knowledge, action, and impact tracking, and doing them really well, it can sustain collective efforts and keep the allies engaged in the movement. So I just want to thank everyone for attending. I want to thank the Carter School for having me and allowing me to present. And thank you all for your insight. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope I get to talk with you all again soon sometime.